Hi there, my name's Lewis and welcome to the Neckpour. This is the Whisky review channel where I give my opinions on whisky from the Neckpour all the way down to the Dregs. And today you join me for our first episode of the Dregs with this absolute non-age state of a banger of a whisky from Lochlea, which is the Lochlea Ploughing Edition second crop. I picked this whisky up in October at a Lochlea tasting evening at Cask 23 in Leicester, one of my local whisky shops and a great place that was hosted by Patrick from Lochlea. And on that evening we were lucky enough to taste our barley, all four of the second crop releases and the cask strength. And to me, surprisingly, this is the bottle that stood out. I went in there already knowing in my head it was going to be the cask strength I was coming home with, but no, this was the bottle that really stood out to me. And coming in non-age stated, 46% non-chill filtered natural colour. It was at £50. I thought it was a pretty good deal for this from a distillery that I'd not tasted any of their stuff prior to that evening, but was really excited to do so. I mean, comes in a lovely box and an incredibly lovely bottle. I mean, there's just something about the bottle. It's both wonderfully designed and it's incredibly tactile. There's clearly a lot of thought gone into this in terms of the design. You know, there's a lovely cork, well written labels with actual legible font on it, although the gold can sometimes catch you in a certain light. And yeah, overall it was a fantastic evening and some really good whiskey to taste. I could have comfortably bought 2 or 3 bottles, but I know my wife wouldn't have been particularly happy had I done so. So this is a fairly young whiskey. As I said, it's non-age stated. At the evening, Patrick let us in on the secret. It's probably around 4 years old, the stuff that was in here, bottled 2024, and not the very first stuff they produced. So yeah, around 4 years old, the likely age for most of the spirit in here. So, which is a very young whiskey, but it's clearly a very fine spirit to begin with and aged really well. They say in anonymous Islay barrels. However, given that John Campbell was their distillery manager, head distiller, I can't remember what his exact title was there, and having come from Lafroig and based on the flavour, it's a pretty safe assumption of one of the worst kept secrets in whisky that they are clearly Lafroig barrels this has been aged in. So let's have a little drink. As you can see, there's only a little drop left. I'll have my last dram now, and then the remainder will go into my infinity bottle, which is something that at some point I will bring to the channel, will be the infinity bottle. Unlike a lot of people, I don't necessarily curate my infinity bottle. I more have it as a living history of everything I've drunk. It's whatever it is goes in there, good, bad and ugly, and we see what happens. But that is something I am hoping to bring to the channel, maybe giving updates a couple of times a year on how that's getting on. So yeah, let's have a look. Again, you can see very, very light whiskey this is, because it's young and it's been in full-size barrels. I mean, this has spent its entire life in the ex-Islay barrels. It's not been in anything else. So they are quite, you know, they're at least second fill barrels by this point, if not maybe even third fill. We don't know how many times they've been used before by possibly Lafroig, possibly someone else on Islay. But having a smell of the whiskey, there's a slight hint of peat to it, but there's lots and lots of green apples and barley, you know, barley and grains and cereals. You know, it smells a bit like a kind of Weetabix note I get from it, mixed in with apples and a little bit of what I think smells a bit like kind of a fresh cut grass. And then moving on to the palate. There's a little touch of coastal there, a little touch of salt and sea air, there's a little touch of peat, and again there's just a huge amount of barley and cereals. You know, you can see how serious the cereals are to them. It's their logo, it's there, it's on the top, it's there. And first and foremost, before being a distillery, Lochlea is a farm. You know, all of their grains, it's called our barley because it's their barley. You know, it's something they're incredibly proud of. And at the tasting, a lot of the evening was spent talking about how the different grains affect whiskey, and how everything they do is about creating their spirit character created by their barley, and how that barley can transfer right through the whole process. And it is a really strong note in there, that note of both on the nose and on the palate. There's a lot of barley cereals. To me, it's a little bit of a Weetabix, but it could be any of those kind of, any sort of unsweetened breakfast cereal. There's a lot of fruit in there, but a kind of brighter, sharper fruit. There's a little bit of citrus as well. And all of that's kind of balanced with a lovely just wave of peat right in the background, you know. It's like walking along a beach with a fire off in the distance. There's just that ever so slight hint of smoke coming through, but over the top of that sea air and those lovely cereal and apple notes. On the finish, again, it's incredibly smooth. Those little hints of peat do an amazing job hiding some of the youthfulness of the whiskey. To me, when I tried this whiskey compared to the others, that little hint of peat in this one really does a lot to hide some of that youthful, prickly character, which I did find in a couple of the expressions. The Our Barley and the Sowing season, particularly with the two that I found the youngest, whereas this one and the Fallow edition, which is their autumn whiskey, which was heavily sherried with PX as well, I thought was very, it worked in a very different way. The heaviness of the PX kind of covered down over some of that youthfulness, whereas this, it's kind of a much lighter peat that hides it, and it does a really good job. I mean, it's really good whiskey, and it's exciting to me to try the whiskey at this young age, and seeing then what the Lochlea will be like in 5, 10, 15 more years, once they've had a chance to age their own whiskey, and the things they are releasing, the things with the 8, 10, 12, 15 year age statements, because Patrick was speaking about this on the tasting evening. You know, those plans are afoot. They're not here to put out non-age stated whiskey and keep pumping it out. They're there to create a real brand and a real legacy, and that's something that's super exciting. I mean, if I was a bit more of a patient man, I would consider keeping some of this back to taste in future years against other spirit. However, we have a limited space in the house, and my wife has told me on no uncertain terms we are not having a whiskey museum in the house. So that's one of the reasons the Infinity bottle was started, because I was terrible for getting bottles to here and then leaving them in the cupboard, because I didn't want to finish them, because then it'd be gone. And since having the Infinity bottle as a way of commemorating them forever, in a sense, it's really helped me get through them. But no, overall, I mean, this is an absolutely great whiskey. I've really loved it, and I'm really excited to try more of their things. I mean, I've heard great reviews on the stout cask finished with, that's been done with Overtone, and that's certainly a bottle I'm very interested in picking up, because I do really enjoy beer finished whiskey. And if I'd had a chance to, I would have definitely picked up a bottle of the 6 year that's just come out and immediately sold out. But I mean, as years come by, those single casks are going to keep coming, And yeah, based upon this, Lochlea is certainly a brand I'm going to be going back to. You know, lovely flavours, great whiskey, and doing things the right way. And I think it's worth supporting these smaller brands and getting their footprint on the market and allowing them to shape up the whiskey world. Because yeah, there's a lot of things in the supermarket that are a heck of a lot worse than this at similar pricing. But yeah, to sum up, this is a great whiskey. Some people might say £50 is a lot for a non-age stated whiskey, but if you have a little look online, I mean, you can find that between the sowing, the harvest, the fallow and the ploughing edition, between the 3 crops, that means there's 12 sort of editions of this kind of stuff, plus there's the 3 editions of our barley, and so far I think there's only 2 editions out of the cask strength. There is constantly kind of at least one of them that's on offer. And if you were to look about and you were happy to bide your time slightly, you can get these. I've seen them as low as sort of £35, which at that price is an absolute bargain. And I mean, it's a whiskey that's only going to get better. You know, no one in the world thinks that whiskey matured in Scotland is at its best at 3 to 4 years, which is what this is. And in another 5 years' time, this will be a whiskey that I think will really blow people's socks off. And I think they're going to be one part of that kind of new wave of lowlands spirit. But overall, I am sad to see the bottle down to here. And that is, you know, that's a testament to the juice inside of it. It certainly wasn't a whiskey I went there expecting to love. You know, Laphroaig isn't one of my favourite distilleries, and there is that Laphroaig character, but the mixture of the Laphroaig with that beautiful cereal and fruit forward distillate is absolutely incredible. You know, I would highly recommend this to anyone, particularly if it's on offer. And for me, and as I would recommend to you, Lochlea are a brand to really keep your eyes upon. They're going to be only getting better from this point forward. And yeah, anything they put out, I will be looking into, that's for sure. So, as a new YouTube channel, I'm going to have to be that guy and ask you to like and subscribe for more content from myself. But I'd love for you to join me again for a Neckpour, for the Dregs, or just my musings on a particular whiskey. Until the next time, I'd like to say Salancha and see you again.